cruising is something that you would say, give it a shot, give it a try if you haven't yet, because I'm one of those people that I kind of like making my own itinerary and agenda. I don't know why. I've shied away from cruises a little bit. So
Yeah, there was kind of a time when I was hesitant to it myself. I've got 3 daughters, and we travel with them since they were babies. But I can tell you the amount of engagement that the kids have on the cruises, whether it's watching the movie Under the Stars, the kids programs they're doing throughout the day, they're meeting other kids their
big
age.
On memory making,
yeah, they're really having a good time, and it doesn't hurt for mom and dad to get an hour or two to maybe slip away and have a coffee or a cocktail while they're doing something with kids they just met.
Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily. It's a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and joining me today is Travis Paquin of 417 Travel, and we were just chatting about all of the amazing places that people are going right now and looking into and going this summer. And so if you have not planned that family trip yet that you want to take, or a weekend somewhere, you are in the right place, because we are going to be talking about everything you need to know, the travel hacks that you may not know about, and just some destinations too that you may not have even dreamed of. So, Travis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Excited to be here.
I'm just glad that you made time, because you guys are really busy right now, and everybody is booking all the things. And so, I just feel like it's opened up again, travel. We went through a couple years where people were kind of hesitating to stay at hotels and hesitating to do the cruises and things like that. And then it's just like the floodgates opened.
Yeah, totally.
Is that how it feels for you guys?
Yeah, the last 2 years have been the busiest we've had, which is great news post-COVID. I think the exciting thing is a lot of new hotels, a lot of new cruise ships, a lot of additions to theme parks like Disney. So demand's up, inventory is up, which has kind of kept the prices still really good.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think hotels there for a while were kind of hurting, and now it's just like booked all the time. I mean, trying to find something.
Absolutely. There, the last 2 years it's been tough to find what we want. Those last minute deals, and those are always based on availability, and those really weren't there. We're seeing a little window now in the hotel space of some good availability and some last minute deals, but the key in them top hotels or top cruise ships or key destinations is to book early, because the more than likely they're going to sell out.
Yeah, and especially if you want a certain room and if you want a certain view.
Exactly.
And all of those things. You don't want to be in that situation where, what happened to my view and what happened to my balcony? And
we want to make sure you get the experience you want, and sometimes if you wait, you get what's left, and that's often not maybe the cabin you wanted or the resort you wanted. And most importantly, when you're traveling with families, those room categories with 2 bedrooms or adjoining rooms, they're really tough to find, and you want to get those booked in advance.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously narrowing this down to one podcast was kind of challenging when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, why don't we do international? Because there is all of a sudden more demand. People are going to Europe again, and going overseas, and even, the Caribbean and things like that. But there are some tricks to it, to making travel work. Me personally, I've done a little bit with my kids being young, and I always remind them, I'm like, Mommy was 35 before Mommy got to go to Maui,
Right.
You're a baby.
Yes.
So enjoy it. But there is a lot to it.
Yeah, there is. Obviously, your flights, if you're traveling to some of these places, they're not going to be a one-stop flight out of Springfield. Your transfers to and from hotels. If you're traveling to Europe, we're looking at trains, sometimes trains, planes, and automobiles.
Oh, yeah. Buses.
Yeah, and make sure you got the right documentation. Passports will be required to travel internationally. We're going to want to make sure there's certain countries have some pre-check-in documents you got to do, visas, things like that. So there's a lot to it. So the best thing is to reach out to a local travel agent, let them work with you, work through the details, and they'll be the experts in helping you plan that and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Well, I had a friend who was traveling overseas, and she got turned around because her passport was 6 months from expiring. And that never crossed her mind. She's thinking, yeah, I've got 6 months on it. It's great.
Yeah, they don't make it easy on you because that's different by country. So sometimes it's 6 months. Some other places that's not a requirement, so it's always important to check.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to give you that information when you book with us. The airlines are great. If you get on the airline apps, they'll usually always notify you of any requirements that you might have prior to arriving to your destination.
So read it. Don't just click OK.
Yeah, read it, click through. And that's kind of a key thing now. Everything's moved to an app or a web page. So downloading your airline app, your hotel app, the cruise app if you're traveling there is so important. It'll keep you up to date on gate changes or schedule changes. We were just on a flight coming back from Scotland and sitting in Dallas, and our gate changed. And we got that text while we were sitting in the restaurant and was able to make that adjustment real quickly.
And sometimes those gates can be a good distance from where they started.
Yeah, sometimes you're taking a train to get to that new gate. So yes, absolutely.
And I'm always waiting on that coffee or that bagel and trying to get that in time before the boarding starts. So.
Yeah, and we always try to provide you with a detailed agenda so you know exactly where to go, when to be there. It's always kind of a good idea to be early when you can to avoid lines and just make sure that you're prepared for each of those components of your trip.
Because it's unpredictable. So talking about families, I have definitely seen a lot of friends. I myself have not done one yet. They're jumping on the cruises again. That seems to be the hot ticket. I know one family that has done multiple cruises in the last, I feel like they go every time school's on break. Those are kind of a no-brainer for families, aren't they? Because everything's there for you in one place.
They are. Our cruise business is just really, really improved and increased over the last 2 years. We got some great new ships. The mega ships are out. The cruise ships have great kids clubs, kids programs, water slide, go-kart tracks, zip lines. So they'll do a great job. They're pretty much all-inclusive with food and drinks if you buy the right packages.
So you know what you're going to be spending, and you're not getting there and thinking, oh my, this is a lot more than what we budgeted on.
Yes, and these ships are bigger than you think. So you do have a lot of space, a lot of areas for the kids to play and do things, and even spaces for mom and dad to get away.
And what's one of the main cruises that you recommend?
Right now, if it's families, Royal Caribbean is hard to beat with, their ships are a destination within themselves. So it's really hard to beat a good Royal Caribbean cruise if you've got those, kids 3 to 12 years old. This is a perfect cruise for you.
And also they stop multiple places, so you can cross several different islands off your list.
Yeah, catch a few destinations. That's the nice thing about cruising. You can see 3 or 4, 5, 6 countries at the same time, and you can check a lot of places off, kind of that list of places you wanted to see.
So cruising is something that you would say, give it a shot, give it a try if you haven't yet, because I'm one of those people that I kind of like making my own itinerary and agenda. I don't know why. I've shied away from cruises a little bit. So
yeah, there was kind of a time when I was hesitant to it myself. I've got 3 daughters, and we travel with them since they were babies. But I can tell you the amount of engagement that the kids have on the cruises, whether it's watching the movie Under the Stars, the kids programs they're doing throughout the day, they're meeting other kids their age.
They're big on memory making.
Yeah, they're really having a good time, and it doesn't hurt for mom and dad to get an hour or two to maybe slip away and have a coffee or a cocktail while they're doing something with kids they just met.
And they love the kids club.
They love it.
It's not a babysitting service. They go over the top with things for the kids.
It's like I said. They've got activities that my kids would often say, I don't want to do that tomorrow, and then they would look at the agenda and say, oh gosh, I'll see you, mom and dad. I definitely want to go to the my scuba class or face painting or whatever they might be doing.
Yeah. And so another bucket list destination, since you're getting to do the international ones here, I think for a lot of people is Hawaii. Now, granted, it's a state, so I guess you wouldn't need the passport and all of that.
Yeah, Hawaii is at the top of everybody's list.
Everybody wants to go to Hawaii.
Absolutely. And if you've got kids, it's a great destination. It's fun and sun. There's not a passport required. If you're traveling with younger kids, just a single island Hawaii trip like to Maui is absolutely perfect. Get you a rental car so you can kind of run around and explore the island on your own.
Drive to the volcanoes.
Yeah, all the sites. Hawaii National Parks now that you got to get a pass to drive to, and there's a few things there that we'll make sure you're aware of. But a wonderful destination, and like you were talking about the kids being spoiled, you might as well get them there early.
Yeah, well, mine were, I'm trying to think, my youngest was about 14 months when we went to Maui, and so my oldest would have been 4. And so it was also my first time on a Hawaiian island, and so I'm trying to tell them, Mommy had to be grown up before she got to go here. But it really was a family-friendly thing. The only thing I will warn parents about is the time change.
Yes.
It's only a few hours. It's not like Europe, but in a way, Europe is almost easier because you can sleep on the plane during the night, and it's a new day when you get there. With Hawaii, you're going the other way on the clock, and so they're definitely going to be up by 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
so you'll make the most of those sunrises.
Absolutely. We always say try to get to your normal sleeping time, whether you've got to stay up really late that day you arrive to kind of make that adjustment.
Yeah.
But absolutely. And it's a little bit worse going to someplace like Europe because you got a longer flight time with kids on the plane. So
that's true. But don't let that intimidate you, I would say. They can do it. Like, kids can do flights. I would just always pack a little bag of new things, new toys and things like that they haven't seen before, creative toys.
Yeah, we just flew all the way back from Scotland with 2 kids behind us, and we wouldn't have known they were there. They
were
were
activities the whole
arts
time.
And crafts, and of course on their gaming machines there and the iPads. So a lot of tools now to keep kids busy.
I
on the
always
flight.
had the iPad as a backup.
Yes.
I'm like, if the activities fail, because they can't be on an iPad for 8 hours.
No, and I wish when my kids were younger there was an iPad because that would have been handy.
But the snacks too. Like,
absolutely.
I just keep them pumped with snacks, and it's okay. You'll see little kids walking up and down the aisle on the airplane, looking around. Just the experience of the airplane is super exciting for them.
Yeah, they like the airport. They like all the things we normally don't like, right? Waiting on the plane, and
yeah, it's exciting.
So room service in the hotel, that gets them all excited.
But I think Maui is huge. I love that you mentioned that. There's so much to see, from the volcanoes and the waterfalls and the hiking. We put the 1-year-old on our back, and he would take his morning nap on the hike.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Post Lahaina fires, Maui really needs the business.
Yes,
so,
and it's still as beautiful as ever.
Still beautiful.
Okay, so our third one on the list is, we kind of alluded to it, is Europe.
Okay.
And I think what you were mentioning, Travis, is really important to don't be too ambitious.
Right.
With a European vacation with a family. So as far as I've taken mine, my oldest would have been in first grade and my youngest was 4, so 7 and 4. We did London for Christmas.
Wow, you're brave.
And I took them by myself because Ryan was over there for work. So we met my husband over there for work. So thank you. And I never got a medal for it. But on the way there, it actually isn't bad because if you can book one of those flights out of Atlanta or Newark or whatever at 10 o'clock at night, the kids will go to sleep on the plane.
Absolutely.
And then when they wake up, there's croissants being served.
There you go.
And so then it's a new day, and here we are. And so it was a little harder coming back, but when you're coming back, you're going home.
That's right.
So
yep.
When we're talking Europe, where are you sending people right now?
London, Paris.
London, you don't have the language barrier, so you're already ahead there.
Yeah, London and Paris are definitely, and Ireland are the top.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and this comes from the DNA testing and people,
Oh, interesting. They want to see where they're from.
Yeah, we had the DNA test boom, one of the it was post-COVID, plus these people were taking, and we couldn't believe how often they come in and say, I just found out I'm Irish, I need to go. And they
Yes.
generally want to track their family heritage, which is very neat.
Okay.
And over there, they can do that. You can go to the Hall of Records, and get a deep dive into.
That's amazing.
I found out, I thought I was going to learn about my heritage in English, and I found out that I'm Italian, literally. So that was kind of an odd.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
you've done Italy now too.
My daughter is coming in. She's done Italy. She's talking about the kids traveling. She's going to Chile for her honeymoon here, and her passport's got more stamps than mine.
But in Europe, you can provide a lot of options, and it maybe more doable than people think.
Yeah, one of the neat things in Europe, depending on what your needs are, is we can get you a good hotel, city center, so you can walk out and see most of the sites. We got a family right now I just talked to this morning. It's in Westminster, staring at Westminster Abbey. Was there for Easter.
Wow.
Is there with the Pope passing, so there's a little bit of high energy in the area. And they're just killing it, right? They've got the train passes and
they're living their best life.
They've just been everywhere.
My son loved Big Ben. That was his thing. Oh, and there's a giant Lego store there in London.
Yes.
So that's a must stop.
Absolutely.
And they still have the old-fashioned toy stores and
when we were
just
up
things
in
that we don't have anymore.
York, and they were buying ghosts. They've got a ghost store in York from the Harry Potter stuff, and they were, as Europe would say, queued up down the block to buy a ghost.
So how long do you think that they should book a trip over there for? 8 to 10 days or so?
A week is good with kids.
Okay.
You got
they're ready to come
day
back.
of travel either way. So 7 days is perfect, especially on a single stop. You can get a lot done in London or Paris or Rome in 7 days. And usually kids don't so much want to walk into churches and museums as much as so.
The higher energy.
Yeah, kick through those things a lot quicker.
Okay. And then the last thing that we put on the list is really talk about a bucket list and a dream item. And we've talked about it as a family, but it is a big deal, and that is an African safari.
It is. There's, again...
Kids need to be a little bit older, right? I mean, I could see that being...
personally, as a father of kids, I would make sure my kids were older so they generally appreciate kind of what they're seeing and experiencing.
Like even middle school age? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For younger kids, it might be like driving through,
the zoo.
Exotic Animal Kingdom with definitely a different price tag. There's a lot of travel, involved in the flight aspect, and then the logistics once you arrive.
Is that usually 3 flights at least?
Yeah, at least. Just depending on where you fly from. Coming out of Springfield, it would definitely be at least 3. And we're blessed with Springfield. We can get you Springfield to one of the major, Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago, Denver, and get you almost anywhere. It's actually easier to fly to some of those places than it is to get to some of our Caribbean islands because of the Springfield connections. As we talked earlier, I wouldn't recommend a kind of a bones version of a safari. You want to make sure you've got the right accommodations, the right tour operators to take good care of you while you're there.
Security.
Right security. Make sure you got the right paperwork done. Make sure you don't require any vaccinations, things like that, so you don't have any surprises when you book a trip like that.
Okay. So as we're heading into the summer, is now kind of a good time? Springtime, still you can get things booked?
Yeah, great time. As you mentioned, cruises are a little bit tough depending on your sailing, but we do have some availability. Mexico and the Caribbean are all-inclusive products. We still have a few spaces available on some Alaska cruises. We have 2026 out. We're launching 2027, probably in the next few weeks, so book early. If you haven't done the summer trip, all you dads out there who were supposed to book the summer vacation and forgot, now's the time.
Does that happen?
Happens more than you'd ever think.
So you get some panicked phone calls?
Panicked phone calls from fathers who were supposed to book, or fiancés who were planning on booking that honeymoon let that go by the wayside. So
you're able to save people sometimes.
It's usually the most fun when we can
see what we can come up with
turn
here.
that anxiety into excitement.
Yeah. Well, in my household, I am the one who plans, but I have a brother-in-law. He plans every detail. So it seems like it either goes one way or the other for most households. It's either mom or dad.
Yeah, we generally have the moms do. They're usually the better planners. So we usually have the dealing with moms, and usually when we're dealing with dads, it's a little bit easier because they usually don't know what they're doing.
So you can just take care of everything.
We'll take care of it all for you, Dad.
Well, thank you for that insight, Travis. Is there anything else that you want people to remember when they're making their plans, or anything they need to remember about the airports? Or anything like that?
Most importantly, be prepared. Do your diligent homework. Use a local travel agent, even if it isn't ours. They'll make things a little easier for you. Be patient. And I think the key thing is find something and book it, right? It's very rare that you'll regret money you spent on a vacation creating good family memories. And again, if it's just you and the missus, we do a lot of adults only, honeymoons, anniversaries, and trips like that to really rekindle the fire there.
And I think it's important, too, to have things to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Put it on the calendar. Even if it's 6-9 months from now, you've got that trip to look forward to.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily. If you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe so you're notified when our next episode drops. It's every Wednesday. You can also follow Around the Ozarks on social media and head to aroundtheozarks.com where you can sign up for our daily newsletter so you don't miss a thing. We'll see you next time.